recording, and welcome, Rodney McLeod. Good morning.
Good morning, Rebecca, and everyone on the webinar. I'm happy to be here and share what I know. I really enjoy helping small businesses, large businesses, whatever. I just enjoy helping people and grow their business and their lives. And like Rebecca said, I've got a long background in computers. I've been in the Air Force 20 years working in computers, then did as a contractor for 15 years. And now I started my own business a couple years ago doing cybersecurity services for the federal government. And we are now launching a business into supporting small businesses in the community. So as you said, I'm a member of the ISD Squared, which is International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium. It's a mouthful. It's an international organization for cybersecurity. And I'm a member of it and participate in it every year in their annual conferences. So what we're going to talk about today is cybersecurity and how to protect your small business. Just kind of a quick overview. We'll hit up what small businesses, what they play in the community, what data there is, and what there is to protect in your organization, how folks can attack it, the bad guys, what they're after, and then how we can protect it. And this is just going to be a high overview, and I believe Rebecca has a chat for questions. If you have questions as we go through this, you can chat them in there, and then at the end we'll go over some of those questions and answers if you want to dig deeper into any one of these subjects.
And thank you, Rodney, for mentioning that. At the bottom of your screen, I think most folks this morning are used to our webinars by now, but there's a chat box. So just let me know what questions you have. And then Rodney, we'll make sure that when we send out a recording of this and put it on our website with the chamber, mountpleasantchamber.org, they have a way to reach you directly as well.
Right. And if we run out of time answering questions, somehow I can still answer those and we can get them out to the community somehow through you, Rebecca. Okay. So I guess I'll go ahead and get started here with the first slide. Move forward. Okay. How important are small businesses? So these are some statistics that I pulled off of the web. I believe this is from a Verizon report. I didn't put down my source, bad me. But this is kind of where it is. And, small business means a lot to our country. And it's important to protect that data. And we got big businesses. I mean, they have large staffs, but small businesses is under 500 employees and really small businesses under 20 employees. And most of these small businesses under 20 employees don't have a staff, so they have to outsource to get the resources to secure their systems. And the bad guys know this, and they are going to and attacking these small businesses because they have the less resources to protect themselves. One example, if y'all are familiar with the hack against Target a couple years ago, the way that happened was it was a small vendor taking care of their HVAC system, and they had a computer login into their HVAC system where they would remotely log in and manage the system. Well, the hackers got into their company, got the username and password, was able to log into the HVAC system, and then from there, it was connected to their corporate network. So they were able to get into that and go to each store and put in scammers on their point of sale systems where you swipe your card. And so they were stealing your card number, PIN numbers, and that kind of thing. And that's how Target got hacked. It was through a small business. So, they try to hit on the big businesses and stuff, and they can't get there. So they look for smaller businesses to go and try to get in. And then, I mean, just maintaining vulnerabilities on your system. I know Equifax is not a small business. However, what got them hacked was they had a web server that you would normally go to check your credit score and that kind of thing. Well, they had one web server that was missing an important patch. And that's how we find out now that it was the Chinese that hacked them and stole everybody's information. But it was just one simple patch on a web server that allowed them to get in and steal that information. So, I mean, there's a lot going on there on how people get into us, but small businesses are just as important as large businesses. Another thing that gets us, and we'll get into it a little bit more, is ransomware, where they lock up all your systems in your company, and you can't do business until you pay them. So that's where they're looking at small business really is stealing your data or locking your data up and making you pay for it. So the next thing we're going to talk about is in your network, what's important and what do we need to protect? And it comes down to the main thing is data. What data do you have on your network? Is it PII? And you know, PII is a person's name, their driver's license, their social security number, their address, anything that can tie them back to that person. That's PII. You got to protect that. The next thing is HIPAA, which is medical data. If you're a clinic, a hospital clinic, or a dental office or something, that you maintain HIPAA records about medical records. That's another area that you got to protect that. And something that I pointed out recently to an attorney's office was they file workman comp claims. And so they have that data in their filing system, those workman comps. That's HIPAA data. So that's got to be protected at a higher rate than just PII. Then PCI is your credit card information. So if you're processing credit cards locally on your computer machine, and I'm not talking about Square or any of that the app goes to the cloud, but if you are holding information on your computer in your office, then you got PCI concerns that you got to comply with. And then CUI stands for Controlled Unclassified Information, and this is mainly dealing with the government. So if you have a contract with a government, or if you're a subcontractor to a prime contractor to the government, you have to have a system security plan and security rules in place to protect any of their data that's on your network. And then, of course, the other information is proprietary business information. And this is information, you know, how you run your business that sets you apart from your competitor, and you don't want that to get to your competitor. And so that's the kind of data that you want to protect there. So all this is data that needs to be protected. And if it's on your network, you'll have things in place to protect it. And I have a lot of people tell me, well, I use all my stuff's in the cloud. I use Microsoft 0365, or I use Google Docs to store all my data. You still have to maintain it, the controls up there. They put things in place, but you still have the responsibility to monitor it. And then if you have stuff that you process that's on your local computers before you put it up there, that you save it on a local hard drive, you still have to maintain the security of that while it's in your possession in your office or on your laptop at home, wherever it may be. So that's kind of the things that we're looking to protect, because this is what you do your business with. And if you lose any of this data, you know, all this stuff in, and forgive me, I'm colorblind, I would say that's purple, the dark blue boxes, those are mandated by government regulations. So, I mean, there's fines that come along with that if you lose any of this data. Now, your proprietary business information, that's just, there's no laws that you get fined, but I mean, it can still damage your business. So that's what we're protecting inside. So we also have to protect our systems and where this stuff resides. And we'll get to that in a little bit later. But this is the most important thing that we look at, is the data and how we maintain it, secure it, protect it, back it up, continuous operations. And then we got the different attacks, and this is very short list of attacks, but it covers most of them. And so ransomware, normally that comes in from a click from an email, from a website. You click on a link, If you don't have software on your machine to stop it or to block it, I mean, then that's how they get in and ransomware your machine. Virus and Trojans, same thing. They come in through email, website links. I've seen this where you're surfing the web and all of a sudden a page pops up and it looks like a McAfee or Norton page and says, you got a virus, click here to clean it. Well, that's a trigger that's in a web page that pops up and you click on it. Now you installed something on your machine. And there's ways to block those things. And we can talk about that down the road if I have time. And then vulnerabilities is making sure that you have all your patches on your computers, your phones, whatever you use electronically. Ensure you do the updates. You know, the Microsoft patches, if you have a Mac system, make sure Macs. If you have printers, that there are patches that can go on printers, making sure the firmware is updated. That's something that needs to be done on a regular basis and updated. And if you are securing stuff in your own office, you need to scan for these vulnerabilities to see what's out there to make sure you are getting things patched the way they are. You may be doing the Microsoft patches, but you can be missing stuff if you're not actively scanning. Social engineering. So that's when somebody calls you up on the phone and says, hey, I'm Rebecca's assistant. I need you to give me her password so I can, get into her system and fix something. And so it's just getting you to do something. And most of the time it's something urgent, has to be done right now. It's for a boss or somebody important, maybe in your chain of command, that they will get you to do something, click on something, give them some kind of information that gives them leverage to get into your network. And then the denial of service. So that's when, and this is bad actors, say you got a competitor that really wants to shut you down. And so they will send flooded information to your systems and from different locations, and all that information coming in at once will shut down your computer system. It can't respond to anything because so much is coming in. That's like 100 people asking you a question at the same time. You can't answer, so you just quit. And so that's what a denial of service is. So, I mean, you got bad actors do it just for the fun of it, and then you got folks that are doing it trying to shut your business down and disrupt your business. So these are the major ones that hit small businesses. If you get these things set up, have policies in place to handle them, that will alleviate about 80% of your problems in your network. So then we got to talk about disaster recovery. What if something happens? If you have a natural cause of fire, storms, floods in your office building, what do you have in place to continue to work if something like this happens? And you need a disaster recovery plan and a COOP, they call it, continue operation plan. In case something like this happens, you can keep working. If a fire in your facility, make sure you have that data backed up somewhere else where you can quickly restore it and get back to business so it doesn't put you out of business. Same thing with hackers, with ransomware, viruses, Trojans. Again, good backups of your system stored somewhere else away from the storms is away from your office. Ransomware is on another network or off network somewhere, so it's backed up and stored off network, so these ransomware and viruses can't get to that backup. And then insider threat. Do you have employees that may be thinking about leaving, so they take your information, your customer list and all that and take it with them? So I mean, you need to have systems in place to see what employees are doing on the network. At 10 o'clock at night, are they copying data off to a thumb drive or something? There should be processes in place to see what's going on in your network. So I mean, that's real quick, down and dirty on the disaster recovery of it. But disaster recovery is having the plan in place before it happens, so that way you're ready to respond and can be back up quick as possible. So protecting your business. The first thing we need to know is know your data. What types do you have that we talked about earlier? Where is it stored and transmitted and used? Is it stored your local? Is it in the cloud? Is it both? Where all does it transmit? Does it transmit from your computer via email to somebody else? Do you just upload a file to the cloud? How does that stuff transmit around the network? Then who has access to it? On your network, you should only give permissions to that the person needs to do their job. Not everybody should be an administrator on their network that can get into everything. Lock it down to do just their job, just the data that they need. And then monitor that to make sure that you don't have permission creep, that where they ask for something and they get it for a one-time access and then they keep it. You know, if they only need it for one time, take it back. Monitor that stuff. And then how's it backed up and protected? And I always recommend, you know, a three-step. If you're storing it at your office, back it up to the cloud, and then do a local backup that's offline, like a USB hard drive or something that can be taken away. So if your office burns down, then you lose your machine in that local hard drive, but you got it in the cloud. And the same thing, if something happens in the cloud, you have the local backup in the office that's on the offline storage. Okay, this next slide is kind of a depiction of what a company, small business network would look like. And this is what you need to do with yours, is go in here, and this dotted box would be the office. This is what we call on-premise, in your office. So you got some computers here, Windows 10, you know, you may have a Mac, you may have a server, you got your printer that's connected to the network, you could have a fax that is or is not connected, and then your Wi-Fi. And here in this picture, it shows a Wi-Fi. This computer's connected Wi-Fi, this computer's connected directly to a switch that goes out to the internet. We depict in this picture that our website and email for the company is hosted outside by somebody else. So all our email, we know, goes from our machine out to the internet to there. Then we have home remote users that are using a application called TeamViewer that they go to there and then connect to one of these computers or the server in there so they can work from home. So once you got this picture all laid out, now you can look at, you know, all right, we identified what's hardware on our network, what software is on each one of these systems, and then what are we transferring, you know, to the cloud, to our website, where all the information is going and how it's connected. And then we can start, just like if you were at your house and you were securing your home with a security alarm. Well, you know, you would put an alarm on the front door, but then you might have glass break on, you know, a window or another door, that kind of thing. So it's kind of the same thing. We highlight everything, and then we start putting monitors and fixes on each one of these. You know, each one of these, we need to look at what vulnerabilities can be on this system or the software that's on this system. So it just lets you really look about it and think about how data's in there. You know, how do we got to secure our Wi-Fi? You know, can people sit outside and connect to our Wi-Fi and get into our network and start looking around? So this is one of the first things you need to do on your network, is draw it out, how everything is connected, how you use it. Think about, you know, Susie or Tom works at home or works at the office, and just really lay it out, what each one of them, their jobs and responsibility are. Okay, and the next thing is, how do we defend against attack? again, like we just showed in the picture, know what's on your network. If you know what's there, then you can start building it a defense of how I'm going to defend this computer, the whole network, the Wi-Fi, so that you start building a plan of how you're going to defend things. Then a backup strategy, and put that in place and document it. Get with the person who's managing your system and have agreed upon what's getting backed up. Because I've seen it before that a company had an incident where they lost a server and not all the data on the server was being backed up, only part of it. And there was a miscommunication between the owner and the company that was doing the backup. You know, oh, I didn't think you meant that one. So you need all this in a writing of what's going to be backed up, how often, where it's going to be stored. All that needs to be written out and understand between you and the company, so you know where your data is, what's getting backed up. So again, when you have a disaster, you're not going, what the heck happened? Where did we go wrong? Excuse me a minute. And sorry if I'm talking too fast. I'm trying to get all this in as quick as I can. Then we can talk about questions and answers. Make sure your virus and malware programs on your system are up to date, whether using Microsoft Defender or Norton or McAfee. There's a treasure trove of them out there. Whatever you use, make sure that it's up to date. And the application's up to date and the signature files are up to date. They need to be updated daily, the signature files. Then keep your system updated with related patches, with Microsoft patches, your software patches. I mean, right now, everybody's starting to use Zoom. And there was all kinds of security problems with Zoom. Well, the company's now jumping through hoops to get patches out to address all these security things. So you need to make sure that you're updating regularly to get all these updated patches that's being sent out. Implement secure configurations. So when you get a brand new Windows 10 computer and you start it up, there's a lot of things in it that's just inherently open to make it easy to use. So users, especially home users, don't have problems with it. And there are checklists out on the internet. CIS has one. The Department of Information Systems has one out there. It's called the STIG. There's settings that you can go through and check these things off and make sure they're more secure, and just turning off basic stuff. And then train your users is a big thing. Train them to recognize suspicious emails, websites, and phone calls. That's the number one thing, or one of the biggest things, is training your users. Just don't click on an email. If the CEO company sends an email and says, I need this right away, don't just click on it and do it. Make sure you know it's coming from him. And if we got time at the end of this, I have one that I will show you that just happened to me 2 weeks ago, that somebody tried to get a bunch of money from me, which I wasn't real happy about. And then I can't stress enough about having policy and procedures for your organization. If you don't have these at least 4 basic things documented, you need to look into getting them done. Rules of behavior. What do you expect your employees to do? You use your computer for doing the work that you have to them. If you want them to check their personal email, state it in there. It's not good to have them checking Gmail and stuff, because that brings viruses into your system. So you need to put down what they can and can't do while they're on your network, and point some of these things out that are very bad to your security and your environment. And then security policy and procedures, which your rules of behavior will reflect whatever you put in your policy and procedures. And then incident response. Have a plan. So if somebody gets a virus on their machine, what do you do when Johnny, calls you or says, hey, my computer's doing crazy thing, it's deleting files or this, what's the first thing you need to do? You know, if you don't have an IT person on site, then you know somebody needs to unplug that from the network real quick. At least it doesn't get other computers, and that's, you know, the first step. So there'd be some steps: who to contact and what to do. And then the disaster recovery plan. How are we going to continue to operate our business if we lose data and we got to recover and get back in business? I mean, if you lose your data, it's hard to do billing, schedule your appointments, whatever may have been in your data. You need to get that back up as soon as possible so you can get things going. Not only that, how do you contact people that you had planned to do business with in the next day, week? You know, you need to somehow get a hold of those people that you had appointments with. Think about those things. How are you going to contact those people? How are you going to know who to contact? Just things to think about when we're going through this. So I went through this pretty quick. And so Rebecca, do we have any questions to talk about now, or do you want me to go over that incident that I had?
I would love for you to go through that example you showed me earlier today. That was very enlightening to me.
Okay. So I do cybersecurity for the federal government, and I am a subcontractor to a prime contractor. So they hired me to support them in services. So we sent an invoice couple days ago. It's been a week ago now. We sent an invoice to them for our services for the previous month. And then like 3 days later, I get a phone call from their accountant and says, hey, Rodney, do you really want us to switch your bank routing number and my bank account number? And I'm like, no, don't do that. As a matter of fact, why are you wanting to do that? And he says, well, your assistant sent us an email saying to do this with a letter. And I said, well, send me that so I can look at it. So this is the letter that was sent to them. So Brittany's my assistant. They got her picture and everything somehow and sent it. And it looks legit. We always send our bills to accounts payable, and we always CC billing, which is our department for history. Now, one thing strange about this, all these other people on here are normally not on our email. So that should have been a flag on their side. And this Derek, he's the one that called me asking if I really wanted to do this. So, and I mean, they just said, hey, please attach as our wire information payment. Let me know if there are any questions, concerns. We appreciate your prompt payments. So that line comes right from our billing email. Let me know if there are any questions or concerns. So they grabbed that from the billing email and all this other stuff that we had. So when I got that, I looked at the wiring instructions and the bill that we sent, which I have here, the fake letter on the left, you know, they took the information from the top of my invoice and put on there. One thing that should point when you're looking at this stuff, look for mistypings like McLeod Information Systems LLC. The I and the S are lowercase. It's like, would we really send something out that was typed like that? There's just little things to look at. Why would they do that? And then this was in some kind of template or something, but what they copied in, you can see it's not returned properly to meet what this was. Oops. And then you can see that they grabbed my signature right off the invoice and pasted it on this letter. That's the exact same signature. So that was sent. Luckily, the accountant called me, said, do you really want to do this? No, he sent it to me. So then I was able to diagnose the email. So we look at the email and it went to billing. So that should have alerted me, and it went to me when this email went out. So I should have got the email saying, hey, it's alert. And that's what they're looking at it. It should have been CC'd to me and my company. But as we go down through, this is all the information behind the email, what the computer sees. So this is where it was received from. So that's not either one of our computer networks. And then if you look behind that email, billing, they only put one L in it. So, you know, when you're emailing, it puts the friendly name, but behind it, it puts the real email. So they got one L there. So I didn't get that email. And in McLeod they put two I's. So I didn't get that email. So those didn't come back to me when they emailed it to them. So I didn't see this email that was sent to them. Now they did set it up so if they replied back to Brittany, it would go to this email, byokoboski@mail.com. So that's not us. And that's hosted on GoDaddy is where it came from. So if they would have, if the company receiving this would have replied to Brittany asking her, or she's sure, it would have went to this address, not to us. So then they could have emailed back again with, you know, yeah, do this or whatever. And then digging down a little bit deeper, this is where it came from, razorbin.clum, mail from. They're sending it to ProSphere, which that's the company that we deal with. But see, it says DKIM, that's a security thing, set to none, message not signed. And then to mine, it says header from McLeodis.com. So they spoofed this for me, but it said failed. And so it didn't, it said this isn't where it really came from. So I'm not sure why on their side that their system didn't flag that it really wasn't coming from me. And that's for them to figure out on their side. So that's just kind of how easy it is to send this information. And if they would have changed those routing instructions to this, Chase Manhattan, that's not my bank, Chase Bank, or routing numbers. Yeah, Clemson, South Carolina. It's, this invoice would have went to there. So they would have been out money, not me, because they fraudulently changed it. So, but by that guy calling me, he saved them, questioning this, saved them a lot of money. And he did tell me the only reason they questioned it was a couple weeks earlier, they got scammed like that, and they did send the money to the wrong place.
Thank you so much, Rodney. That expression I said to you earlier today before the call started, the devil's in the details, I think it's very apropos right here. My goodness. Another example I'd love for you to give out, because many of our chamber members, and I see a few on the participant list this morning, deal with clients that are seniors. Do you mind sharing the example you had from one of your networking folks, your colleagues, about what almost happened to their mother?
Yeah, so actually this was my neighbor's mother who was living in a senior facility alone. It was one of those Dell Web facilities. So she was living by herself. She's, you know, coherent enough to do that on her own. But while she was surfing her computer one evening, like I said earlier, the pop-up popped up, you got a virus, this is from Symantec, click here to clean it. So she clicked there, and unbeknownst to her, in the background, it installed a remote client and allowed a guy to connect to her computer. He was from a foreign country, and he said, hey, he needed to do some things and he's working on it. And she's like, okay, great. And what he did was got into her computer, and I don't know all the details, but he got into her banking account and transferred from her credit card $10,000 over to her checking account. And the gentleman told her, hey, I just deposited $10,000 in your checking account. Can you write me a check for $8,000 and you keep the $2,000? And so she's like, sure, you know, thank you. And luckily the daughter walked in right as she was doing this and like, Mom, what are you doing? And she said, well, this guy deposited money and he needs the cash US funds, so I'm writing him a check to send it to him. And no, Mom, don't. And when she got to looking into it, that found out it was her own credit card money that she was fixing to send off. And what that does is because that guy did that, it's not wire fraud because he took her own money and put it in her checking account. She was writing the check and sending it. So it's not wire fraud or bank fraud at that point. It's using her own money. But yeah, luckily it was started by just her mom walking in. And I mean, that's not the first time that people had targeted her mom in different schemes like that. So you got to watch out for things that pop up and invite you on your machine. I'd say 99.9% of the time, they're not your friends.
And thank you for sharing that example. One of our webinars next week is going to be talking about listening to our clients, including our senior population, particularly when you're not with a senior in person as much. How do you make sure that they're being protected? And I think what first comes to mind is making sure they have food and shelter. But this is a great example of protecting them from the internet, basically. Rodney, I appreciate the fact that you mentioned Zoom and the fact that they want to continue to tighten up their security and why it's important to go ahead and keep up with the latest download programs that they are offering us, making sure that we download those. And it's a bit, not annoying, but it's like, I just learned that aspect of Zoom. Now they want me to learn something new, but it is to protect us. So along those lines of using Zoom and everything going to the cloud, how secure is the cloud?
So, and this is something that I've always said, that the cloud is somebody else's computer, okay? So just get that in mind. It's a computer. I have it here, you know, in my office, or it's in the cloud, somebody else's computer. Now, your Microsoft and your Google Cloud, and who's the other one? AWS or Amazon Cloud, those are pretty secure because, I mean, they put a lot of money behind it. Your smaller businesses, you really need to look into them and see what they say about their security, you know, and are they having a third-party assessment? Anytime you do any kind of cloud service, you need to do some research into that company and how they secure their data and what they say in their terms of agreements and stuff like that. So many of us just click through, and I mean, I'm guilty, installing software, whatever, click, click, collect. But we need to look at, especially cloud software and services, what they actually say in their terms of use and how they're going to protect you. Are they going to help you get your data back if it's lost? You know, those kind of things. Are they going to help go after some foreign person that attacked your system? And I can give you a share with that. With the dental, there was a company that targeted dental companies that did remote backups for them. And that's all they did is dental offices. And they had quite a few of them that they were doing backups. What happened to this company was they weren't well protected and they got ransomware in the cloud. So that everybody that was there got ransomware. Not only did they hit the cloud, but then they followed the trace back to every office and ransomwared the office itself. So, I mean, that company ended up pretty much going under. You know, their insurance was trying to help all these dentist offices recover. But again, you know, what's the requirement for that company to help you recover your data when it was truly their fault?
Well, this has been an incredibly informative webinar this morning. I thank you so much, Rodney McLeod, for your expertise. Now I know why you have so many acronyms after your name. You are amazing at this. You really were very enlightening to me. And it's something for me that I'm really a layman when it comes to cybersecurity. I rely a lot on my IT department, which is my husband. So, but this was really something to give me a lot of pause and very informative, opened up my eyes to the importance of cybersecurity and just some basic things to do. I am sure people are going to have some questions later on as well. I see you put your email out there. I'm going to go ahead and and mention that it's Rodney, Rodney, at McLeodIS.com, which is McLeodIS.com. And they can also go to your website, McLeodIS.com, McLeodIS.com. We'll have this webinar up on the Mount Pleasant Chamber website as well as our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Rodney McLeod, and welcome to the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce as one of our new members as well.
All right, thanks, Rebecca. I enjoyed it. And like I said, I'm always here to help. Reach out to me, email. Our website is going under rework right now because it's focused on federal government, but we are adding our small business support to it and our apprenticeship program that we have going. So all that's going to be up on the web, hopefully within the next week.
I look forward to that apprenticeship program. We have a great partnership with our local schools in the area, and so as well as Trident Technical College. So yeah, I look forward to getting some information on that as well. Thank you so much, Rodney.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everybody have a great day.